CEO. Ed March, our CEO, was a good guy. I mean, genuinely good. He reminded me a lot of Jack Welch. He never seemed stressed out, never looked like he was angry. He always seemed able to cut through to the heart of the issue and run things like it was all a vacation. I had more laughs in the boardroom than I can tell you. The man could fire people and make them feel like they had just been promoted. But he was also 73. He'd had a good run, and a guy like that, well, why the hell wasn't he retiring? He didn't look his age, that's for sure. In fact, he looked like he'd keep chugging into his 90s, and that was too long. I was only 47, pretty young to be a CEO of a major company, but I could see a path. And so I did what I had to do. The box was something I kept in a safe deposit box by then. I had sneaked it out, pretending to clean stuff out from the basement. The last two guys I had dealt with by putting their names in right there at the bank. I did the same with Ed, and things went just to plan. Heart attack. The problem was, the board elected an interim CEO while they did a search. I had anticipated that and took out another of my rivals at the company even before the funeral. This was viewed with foreboding and a little bit of suspicion. Bad things come in threes, that kind of thing. But it was overshadowed in the general commotion. Over the next few months, as good outside candidates came up, I would put them away too. 3 more altogether. It was especially tricky for these ones. I would have to find some way to get to know them beyond just the meet and greet at the office and the other days spent working with him and vetting him. I had to be friends, or at least friendly. That could easily come across as creepy or obsequious, like I was already looking to be the biggest brown-noser of the group. It also seemed suspicious to at least one person who said something about it to my face. "That's the 3rd candidate to die, you know, who was looking good," he said. It was the CFO. Numbers and probability were his game. Fortunately, so was evidence, and there was nothing to connect me to their deaths. Not to a heart attack, a car accident, and a drowning. I was always worried that I didn't know them well enough. It would have been easier if I could just stick a name in any time I was moved to, but I counted my blessings. And it worked beautifully 2 out of the 3 times. On the 3rd one, I had to go back and try again after the box had stood dormant for a week. But that was because the guy was naturally standoffish, which is to say, he was friendly enough to be a leader, but he kept people at arm's distance. It's a lesson we could probably all take to heart. Also, just to get it all out, I had to deal with one secretary who also had her suspicions. She never said anything, but she gave me a copy of Shakespeare's Macbeth. It just appeared with my mail one morning. I didn't miss the message. I had read the play in high school, and I knew well enough it was about a guy who kills his way to the top. I had already thought about the play long before, as a matter of fact. Macbeth had to do it up close and personal, but still, it was the same thing I was doing. And look what happened to him. It didn't take me long to figure out who it was. All I had to do was go to security, and they looked at the security footage. I thanked her for it and said I was flattered that someone would give me something out of the blue like that, but I just had to find out who it was. Before she could speak, I said, "Why didn't you leave a card? And what is it about?" I can promise you, she was about as comfortable as a cat at a dog show. "I'm so embarrassed. No need. I love books. My wife and I read a lot. We used to read the required summer books to each other under a tree when we were 12 years old. Can you imagine that?" No, but yes, she said, looking down. "I like you as an employee, Sarah, a lot. Let's just leave things like this for Secret Santa, you know? I just worry about appearances sometimes. Rumors alone can be trouble, and gifts can be double trouble." She laughed nervously. I left the book on her desk. After all the carnage, I was the only real choice for CEO. They could have left the interim CEO in place, but ironically, the board was worried that the 3 deaths would look bad for him, and they didn't want to extend the search because the investors were getting impatient. Which was a great relief to me, because after I was in the corner office, I would never have to use the box again. Wrench number 2. My promise to Gabrielle was that I would stay 3 to 5 years tops. I would be the laziest CEO ever, just get my hefty paycheck and start optioning out ASAP. Everybody would be surprised when I retired, but that's okay. It happens. Gabrielle accepted that. She wanted to make sure the kids were rock solid for their futures, too, and it looked like a good compromise. But there was something in her eyes that told a different story. I thought she didn't believe me, that she thought I would balk when 5 years came around, using all the same excuses. But I was wrong. She knew me much better than that. She could feel something else was wrong. What she did over the next few weeks she kept hidden. Some of it she revealed to me later. Some of it I had to piece together after the fact. She could tell that I had been stressed out after Ed March had died. I didn't really have the right to think I'd be made CEO, but I was obviously very into the politics of it, and she could sense that I had more at stake than a mere spectator. She could smell it. Something about my odor exuded anxiety. She also saw I wasn't sleeping well, and one time she saw me sleepwalk, which I never, ever did. As people around me started dropping off, she saw the pattern. People I was talking about, people that were in my way, people that all of a sudden I wanted to be friends with, would suddenly die off in some mysterious way. And each time their death made the path clearer for me. And each time I would calm down for a little until the next threat reared its head. I also got up late at night a lot to go to my office downstairs, and she started going through the security tapes to see what I was doing. All I did was look things up on the computer and pace around, but I was clearly agitated. She went through my browsing history, which I never erased at home, and found nothing out of the ordinary. At worst, there were searches on the candidates for CEO. At one point, a stealthy intuition slinked into her mind, and she thought of the night where I had been looking at the box at that desk. She looked for it, probably cursing herself for trying to find something she didn't want to know, and saw that it wasn't in my office closet or in the basement. Then she started going through the security footage to try and find out when I had moved it. That was an impossible task. There was simply too much. But looking at the tape from the time she had sneaked up on me at my desk wasn't. It was in the first week we had the system. When she examined it, she could see how I had opened the box and gotten the piece of paper out of it. So, nothing to worry about there. That's exactly what I had told her. But she remembered I had told her I was up because Cam had woken up. And when she checked back, that wasn't true. I had gone straight to my office. Then she went through the previous nights, and she saw me write that name on the slip, agonize what to do about it, and put it in. That to her was strange, very strange. If you're counting, that's really 2 lies I told that night, because I had also told her I didn't know where the slip had come from. And I had thought all along it was just 1 lie. That's how fast you lose track when you aren't being straight with people. And then she checked the nights after that, one after the other, and she saw me get the box and once again write something on a piece of paper and put it in the box. 2 days later, she looked up my Google account and checked my map data. That was no problem for her because technically we had nothing to hide from each other, and while I had thought about erasing my data, that would have been suspicious. I also didn't believe Google really did erase data, so there would still be a way to get it. And I thought my secrets would be better hidden in a larger haystack. But she was already suspicious. About what, she still wasn't sure. She just knew something was wrong. My data showed that I had gone back and forth to work as usual, that I had taken a few business trips to the locations I had said I had gone to, and that I had been to certain places like the golf club as usual. But several trips to the local branch of our bank stood out to her. Why would I be going to the bank? I had no need to. She went. She would take out a couple stacks of hundreds and put them in the safe, which I would use like a piggy bank. To her knowledge, if I ever needed to go in, I would go in town, not to our local branch. And when she zoomed in, don't you just love Google? She could see that I went into the back part of the building, where the vault was, and the safe deposit boxes. Busted. In the middle of the day, I got a call from Gabrielle saying I needed to come home right away. Cam had hurt himself. They were still at the hospital, but would be home by the time I got there. I dropped everything and left. That was our way. If she said it was important enough to come home, I went, no questions asked. I'll always cherish this memory. It was the last time I lived in her wonderful, beautiful world. The last time I will be able to honor her as her warrior and protector. When I got there, I heard her call to me from the office, but she didn't come out to greet me. The house felt empty. I could sense that the kids weren't there. Her voice reminded me of the time she called to me when I was walking home after I found out Big Pete had died. My mouth was dry as I entered the room. I need to know what's in the box. The box? I said, terror squeezing my heart into painful palpitations. The safe deposit box at the bank. I calmed down, but only slightly. There's nothing bad. I'm not cheating, if that's what you think. It's not what I think. I think you went to the local bank on several different occasions for a short time, and you went to the vault. What were you doing there? I was looking at something. What? I didn't answer. We're going there now. I want to see. Gabrielle, I said. I was kind of squeaking. Please, it's best to just leave it alone. It's not alone anymore. I want to know. It's just some documents that I want to check, that's all. It's private. It's my special will. Her lip quivered. She didn't want to do this. You don't have any special will. Is it that box? That's when I panicked. No, it's just documents, I swear. And why are you going to visit them 10 times? Why those days? She gulped and seemed to correct herself. Why those dates? I knew she was right on the trail. Right on the trail. I wanted to check the information. That's it. I want to see it. She went out to her car and waited for me to get in. I had no choice. I shuffled out, slowly, thinking somehow, I would think of something. Or maybe something strange would happen, like a nuclear bomb, or a real call from the hospital. Maybe we'd have a car accident and she'd lose her memory. Do you have the key? I dropped my head. I was hoping we'd get there, and I'd say, oh no, where's the key? And look at the time. Guess we'll have to come back Monday. And then I would have all weekend to think of some way out. I shuffled back inside and took as long as I possibly could to get it. Should I pretend I couldn't find it? That was below my dignity even then, at the most humiliating moment of my life. I had made a little hole in the side of my chair and hid it there, and no, it had not somehow disappeared. So I went out and got in the car. She wouldn't talk. The Closet to Narnia. Years and years ago, I heard a radio story about a habitual liar. He told big ones, small ones, and pointless ones. He lied about absolutely every little thing just for the thrill of it. Getting caught never mattered to him. He couldn't stop. The guy talked about how the best lie is one you make yourself believe. And he said sometimes he really and truly did believe them. Facing the truth would be not just a humiliation he couldn't bear, but it would be a brain break. He would never admit to a lie and never take it back, not even if it was so ridiculous it couldn't stand up to the slightest scrutiny. The interviewer asked him, "Not ever? Not one time? Even if you knew no one would believe you?" The guy said he once told a friend he had a closet like the one in the Narnia series. It led to a different world. The friend wanted to see, of course, and he realized with the closet right upstairs, the jig was up. So he changed the subject. He delayed. He tried to make excuses. But the friend was having none of it. He wanted to see the closet. So the guy said that he agreed. He said, "Sure, you'll see." They went up to the closet, and he was ready to claim that it always worked before and that it must have just stopped, because technically that couldn't be disproven. But he said that even then he had this hope, almost a faith, that somehow it would really be true, that the closet, by some miracle, really would lead to the kingdom of Narnia. That's how I felt as we went to the bank. Maybe the box would be gone. Maybe the box knew I was in trouble and it would just vanish and put a special will in its place. Then everything would be okay. Everything would go on as usual. But that's not what happened. The box was there, and Gabrielle put it on the table. "What do you do with it?" I did not answer. "Do you put names in it? I saw the video. You wrote Steve's name on that paper. And you lied about Cam that night. He wasn't awake. And Steve died. And so did Harrington. He died 3 days after you were here. And McCormick died 2 days after you were here on October 17th. And I started wailing. And I crumpled to my knees. I would no longer lie. I told her everything. I cried. I begged. I said I was sorry. She didn't accept my apology. What's really funny is that even though she had figured it out, and she was a realist, it probably took her weeks to even entertain the notion, she still couldn't fully believe it was true even after I told her. So she made me open the box. And then she held up a piece of paper. It said Cam Jr., and she held it over the opening. "No!" I screamed, and smacked the box off the table. I dove on it and slammed it shut. She stared at me, and I her. "So it's actually true," she said. "It's true. I did it for you. I wanted to be home for you. You killed people." "I didn't. The box did. What about Catherine?" I turned my face to the ground. I heard her footsteps as she left. Smacking flies. She was gone by the time I was home. She had already packed enough to leave well before she ever called. And now I was alone. There was a letter on my desk from a lawyer. That was just like her, my angel. She always thought of everything. I spent that night drinking whiskey in the den. I didn't bother turning on any lights, but I got a pizza and gave the delivery guy $200. I didn't quit my job or moved. I just lived in that house through all the divorce proceedings. Every night, I took something valuable to me and threw it out or smashed it. It might be a picture, a diploma, a book, an award, anything that had sentimental value. And eventually my house had nothing but all the crap we had bought in High Point, North Carolina, Bloomingdale's, or whatever other foofy-doofy shop we patronized. I slept in the guest suite. I got visitation. She couldn't quite bring herself to lock me out of their lives for good, and I didn't fight her on how to divvy everything up. She got most of it, to be sure, but she left me a good chunk. I really don't know why she didn't go for the jugular, but the fact that she didn't made me miss her all the more. Even rejecting me, she had mercy. And I did get, let's say, a little sad for a while. I resigned as CEO the next year. The job was like having two lumberjacks sawing into my head. The company didn't want me either. I wasn't doing a good job anymore, and there was a whole new roster of people ready to vie for my position. I had some vengeful moments when I thought about killing off all the sharks below me one by one, but I didn't have the heart. I vowed never to use the box again, not under any circumstances. I thought about that day when Pete died, and I had that stick to kill the flies. I had stopped carrying sticks anymore after that day. I didn't want death to be near me, not even for flies. I had let death back into my life. But from then on, I would shut it out again forever, until it came for me. My prayers that Gabrielle would forgive me went unanswered, and while our divorce was amicable on the surface, when I went to pick up the kids, she was never there but for one time. That was the first time. I could see she was holding back tears, not because she wanted me back, but because she regretted the waste I had made of everything. And I didn't try to get her back. If she did come, she wouldn't be the girl I had married. If she came back, she would have to become the same corrupt, heartless, foolish excuse for a human that I was. That went on for 10 years. By then, the kids were in college, and I was less and less a part of anyone's life. I took a job at a fracking company and did a lot of field work. It kept me busy. And I met someone. But you must be wondering about the box. Hiding in plain sight. I kept it in the office on a shelf. I was going to have to find a way to get rid of it sometime, and until then, the best way to make sure no one ever stole it was not to try to hide it. It didn't look like much. There was a lot of other stuff more valuable lying around. I lived like a bachelor for those years and never had cleaning people for more than one bathroom and the kitchen that I used, and that only rarely. If I was with the kids, we went to a smaller house I bought on a lake. This one was just a ridiculous McMansion with no character. So the rooms got incredibly dusty. There were paths throughout the house you could see at dusk or early morning. I was only ever in a few spaces. A studio apartment would have been a lot better because my house was the same thing as a giant studio with everything more widely separated. When cleaning people did come, they always offered to clean the rest of the house, and I always said no. I was happier in the squalor. But as I said, I met someone, and I had to stop being the local hermit. Wife number 2. Her name was Candace, and she was at the fracking company. She was a secretary, 32 years old, and lived in a condo in town. I slowly spent more and more time there, and eventually she got pregnant. I didn't care if she was taking advantage of me. I was having a pretty good time, and knowing her got me out into the real world a little more. We had a lot in common, or I thought I did, or I don't care. It didn't mean that much to me, so let me just summarize it. We had one daughter. This one I named Catherine. We got married, and after 10 years of marriage, she filed for divorce and got half my stuff. That was no surprise. I sat down and figured out that she earned $114.08 an hour for the 10 years, rounded to the penny. If you're reaching for your calculator, I factored in 365.25 days a year to account for leap years. Pretty cheap, really. I'd say it was worth it. This time I did fight it out in court, though, tooth and nail, basically for my own amusement. Why not get a few more months out of the relationship before I went back to being the crazy hermit down the street? Besides, she insulted me. She said I'd been much more financially successful with my first wife. How dare she call Gabrielle my first wife?